Hi, it's Karie from OESD, and today I'm going to be showing you some great ways to add personalization to your projects using this great collection, Collegiate Applique Alphabet. So with these embroidered letters and numbers, you can add a little extra something to a ton of different types of projects, such as my sweatshirt that I am proudly proclaiming to be a dog mom. Actually, I have 4 of them. We also have these wonderful cosmetic and toiletry bags, a great way to create a gift for someone in your life or for yourself. We have some other really fun examples behind me. So we're going to go over all of that, and we're going to show you how easy it is to achieve these fantastic professional looks. It is a lot simpler than it appears, so stay tuned and we'll get stitching. As you can see from all the samples, you can make your letters out of any different type of fabric you'd want. Each one is going to give you a little bit of a different result. A couple of the things that we've done is we've made some out of felt. We have our wonderful favorite felt here, but you can use any high quality felt that you have in your sewing room. You'll also see we used our Luxe Sparkle vinyl on some of these projects, such as here. This is a great example where we used the felt and the Luxe Sparkle vinyl to create that fun effect. The reason these are called collegiate letters is not only the font, but that they kind of have the look of a chenille Letterman jacket type letter, where the different textures create sort of that dimension. So you could use Luxe Sparkle vinyl, and of course, you can just use regular quilting cotton. Depending on the type of fabric you use, you may need to add a little something to the fabric itself to give it a little more substance or to help it stay during the applique process. So I'm going to talk to you about our 2 Fusible web products. We have 2 great options, and we'll explain what the differences are. So one of them is called Applique Fuse and Fix, and the second one is called Soft Web. At first glance, they look really similar. So they are both a paper-backed fusible web. And a fusible web is essentially a layer of glue backed by paper. So both of these are great because you can run them through the printer. All of our collections with applique come with a template that you can print out if you wanted to pre-cut your applique pieces. So they're both available in 8.5 by 11 sheets. They can run through a printer, but they also can just be trimmed. So Fuse and Fix is a little bit heavier than Soft Web. And once you fuse that, for example, we would take, this is your paper side, it's your glue side, and you would fuse that first to your piece of fabric. The thing about Fuse and Fix that's nice is that once it is fused, it makes your fabric into a sticker, basically. So imagine, if you will, that's how it's going to come after you've fused it. And now this side is tacky. So when you have your applique piece and you put it down on your project, it will stay in place while you're stitching, which is really nice. This is great. Fuse and Fix is great for if you're pre-cutting your applique pieces with a template. So if you wanted to cut your pieces out ahead of time and then place them right in your placement stitch, Fuse and Fix is a great way to go. What I used mostly in this project, though, is Soft Web. Soft Web is a little bit lighter. It's probably hard to tell on camera, but it's a bit softer, very similar. But Soft Web is going to give you a really soft and pliable feel to your fabric. It is not a sticky product, so when you fuse it to your fabric, it's not going to create that sticker effect. But it's a really nice, lightweight, fusible web, and I will show you the process of fusing that a little bit later on in the video. As always, of course, you're going to need stabilizer, so let's talk about the different options. I'm going to move my felt out of the way here. So we have, again, 2 ways that we're going to show you how to apply these letters. One of them is embroidering directly on your garment, like I've done here. And in that case, you're going to use 2 stabilizers. I'm going to show you 3 here, but Fusible polymesh is actually going to be fused to the back of your garment if needed, and I'll show you that in a bit. And then we have 2 sticky tearaway stabilizers to go in your hoop. And you might ask me, why the heck do we have 2 sticky tearaway stabilizers. And I wanted to take a minute and show you why we have two options. Okay, so again, two sticky tearaway options. So we have a product called Stable Stick Tearaway, which is this one, and we have a product called Ultra Clean and Tear Plus, which is this one. So the difference between the two, again, they're both a sticky tearaway stabilizer. You would hoop this stabilizer in your hoop and then use your perfect scoring tool to score and peel, which will reveal a adhesive surface, which you can then float your project on. But the difference between the two is how it's removed in the end. So both of these, of course, are a tearaway. So after you're done embroidering, they're going to tear away. But what's going to happen is the difference between the two is once you launder your object. So I always say if you're going to create something that's going to be washed and worn, Ultra Clean and Tear or Ultra Clean and Tear Plus is the way to go. Because these are two of the exact same design that I stitched out. This one I used Stable Stick Tearaway, and this one I used Ultra Clean and Tear Plus. And both of these obviously have gone through the wash. So this is what results after you're done laundering. So you can see on this one here where I used Ultra Clean and Tear Plus, there is almost no stabilizer left behind. So the stabilizer has done its job, it's stabilized while it's in the hoop, and then has kind of dissolved during laundering. If you look really closely, you can see there is stabilizer still here. So it's not a water soluble, it doesn't disappear totally, but it will break down with laundering. This one here is the Stable Stick Tearaway. So while it tears away very cleanly, and you can still tear it away after laundering, no matter how many times you wash it, it's really going to stay fairly the same as it was when you tore it out of the hoop. I'm going to show you close up. So this is our Stable Stick Tearaway, and when you tear it away, it also may help you kind of see what I mean. This is a crisp tearaway product. It is the most similar to our medium weight tearaway, but it has a sticky backing. When you tear it, it's a crisp tear. So it is going to tear away from things cleanly and easily. So if you have something that has large empty spaces and it's easy to tear away, that's a great option. The Ultra Clean and Tear Plus is a little bit softer. This tear is a lot fuzzier. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but the fibers themselves are a lot shorter, which creates that fuzzy tear, which is what facilitates it washing away during laundering. The other thing to know about Ultra Clean and Tear Plus is that the adhesive used is a water-soluble adhesive. So it can sometimes leave a little bit of a sticky residue on your project when you tear it away, but as soon as you launder that adhesive will go away completely. So don't be scared if something is a little bit sticky after you remove this. Once you wash it, you're good to go. So in today's projects, I used Ultra Clean and Tear Plus because I mostly embroidered on garments, which of course are going to be washed, and so it is a great option for this project. The other stabilizers I used are Fusible polymesh, and this is actually what I used on the inside of the sweatshirt to create the stability after washing and wearing. So we've talked a lot about stabilizers' purposes. There's two purposes. One is to keep your project stable in the hoop while you're embroidering, right? You need it to stay still and behave while you're embroidering. And then often, if it's something that's going to be washed or has stretch to it, you need to have stabilizer there after the case so that when you put your sweatshirt on, it doesn't distort or stretch. So this is actually a wonderful option for garments. I use this on this sweatshirt, and I'll show you on the sweatshirt I'm working on how I applied that. So Fusible polymesh. And then, of course, we talk a lot about, in this class, making these letters as badges to then fuse onto something else that maybe you can't stitch on. So Badge Master is what you would use in that case. Badge Master is an amazing product. It is a water-soluble stabilizer. We use it a lot in our freestanding lace structures and things. But in this case, you're actually using it as it was originally intended, which is to make a badge. I have an example here. So here you can see it in the hoop. So you actually just hoop 2 layers of your Badge Master. You put that in the hoop, and then you're gonna, we'll talk through the steps in a second of how you stitch. But at the end, this actually perforates and you can pull it out and it is a freestanding little badge. So Badge Master is also very important to this project. So those are all of the stabilizers for in the hoop that we used. Also, we'll talk a little bit about our template sheets, which are perfect for printing out a template of your embroidery so that you can place it exactly where you want it to be. We'll talk about that in just a second, but these are really useful and one of my favorite products. I talk about them in almost all of my videos. So that is a quick view of all the stabilizers that we are going to use. So let me clean this all up and then we are going to walk through the steps of how to actually stitch these letters. All right, so I just cleaned up. Always good for a fresh table. There's never enough room in a sewing room. And we are going to just simply walk through the process of stitching out these letters. For our example here, we're stitching right on some cotton. So this is how you would stitch it if you were doing it, for example, on a sweatshirt or a garment. So imagine this green fabric is your finished project. So the first thing we're going to do is it will stitch a placement line. So you can see that here on the screen. It stitches exactly where your applique piece is going to be placed. The next thing you're going to do is cover that with whatever you're making your applique out of. In the instructions, we actually include those templates, as I mentioned before. The templates are for this lower layer. So in this case, we have some Luxe Sparkle vinyl. We actually have this backed with a little bit of stable stick to give it some rigidity. You certainly don't need to do this depending on the project you're making. It's going to stitch next your tack down stitch. So it actually does 2 rows of stitching as it tacks this in place so that when you trim, it will not, you don't have to worry about trimming super close. So I have two pairs of scissors that I want to talk about really quickly that are my 2 new favorite scissors. These are both from Karie and they're available on our website. I have the double curved scissors, which are these guys. I don't know if you can tell, it's got a nice curve. And then these are just our little super sharp snips. But I found myself reaching for these again and again in this project because if you were going to trim away, which you would do, this outside piece, these double curve are really handy because the curve keeps your hand up and away while you trim. So you would just trim away and they're really sharp. You would just trim away your applique and then move to the next step, which is the stitching of this satin stitch. So it stitched around the outside of that letter that we just trimmed. And then this is a little bit different. So the first time I made these letters, I actually tripped up because the next thing we're going to do is make that second layer of applique. And in my head, I thought there was going to be a placement stitch, and then I would put my fabric down, and then it would sew it in place. But there is no placement stitch. It is your job to just know that you're going to cut a piece of whatever you're using as your applique bigger than this letter. So you can see in this step out, we just placed a piece of felt right down on top of this layer. And then it stitches a really nice thick bean stitch, sort of a triple stitch around the letter. So this second layer is actually a raw edge applique, which is a little bit different than sometimes we do. We do a lot of satin. This is something that is a really neat look and will create a neat effect when you're doing it on cotton as well, sort of a frayed edge look. I know that that is different for some of you, but I promise if you give it a shot, you'll like it. So then the next thing you do is you're just going to trim. This is a little bit freeform, which I know it's a little tricky sometimes, but you're just going to trim kind of up close to that letter stitching. And you'll see there's a little bit left over, and that's kind of the look we want. There's no perfect formula for this. You just kind of trim up there, and then you create this second layer. So again, this is sort of that result that I was talking about where it looks a bit like that Collegiate Letterman jacket letter, which is also another fun way to use these. So that is the process. It's very simple and actually really quick to do to create these letters. So this is on your project. Again, remember the green fabric is representing our sweatshirt or our project that we're stitching directly on. But then the same exact process is how you're going to create the patch. So here is our letter Q. We did exactly the same thing, but because we're now on Badge Master, now that we are done embroidering, we can actually perforate this, and sometimes it takes, you got to kind of give it a little start with a pair of scissors, but it actually just perforates right off of that badge master. So you don't need to rinse this out. You just tear it away. You have your negative stabilizer, which is fun. And that is your applique letter, now ready to be applied to your project. So that is the simple version of the step outs. I started a sweatshirt that we're going to finish so I can show you stitching on an actual project, and then we will talk about how to apply patches to finished goods. All right, so I've got my iron and ironing board here. I should probably bring it closer to me. That would make a lot of sense. We have our wonderful Laura Star iron. We always get a lot of questions about what iron we use. Laura Star is wonderful. I actually have a water tank down below, so lots of good steam. Super fun. Let's get these out of the way. All right, so I am working on a sweatshirt that I think is very appropriate right now. This is my kindness sweatshirt that I'm trying to finish up. So you can see I've already done most of the letters, and we just need to finish the S. So I've already stitched that placement stitch, and we're going to prepare the fabric. So I have my two pieces, my two layers of my cotton fabric, and we are going to apply soft web to the back. The nice thing about soft web, it's a super fast fuse also. So we're just going to put this here, give it a press, and we're good to go. So you may say, why are we putting this on the back of our fabric? So soft web, as I mentioned earlier, does not change the, it doesn't make your fabric sticky. But what it does do, and I have an example, let me move my iron. Let's get this sample back out. So I'm not sure if you can tell, I think it's pretty clear, but here is OESD done in two ways, both with cotton fabric, and this is laundered, and I haven't trimmed or done anything to it after the laundry. But do you see how this OESD has much less sort of frayed edges? That's because on this fabric, I treated it with soft web before I appliqued. So the soft web actually will help kind of fuse everything down, help reduce frayed edges. So you still get that raw edge applique look, which is really trendy, and I just love that look, but it's not going to totally become a frayed mess. So this is with nothing behind my fabric, and this is with soft web. And I think this is a really clean, nice, finished product. So now we have our sweatshirt. We have our two pieces of fabric. So I did this fun little green fabric first. I fused my soft web, and then I let it cool. And now I can peel away the paper. And you almost can't tell that anything is different, but you can sort of see, maybe, that this is a little bit shiny now on the back. So again, it's not sticky, nothing has really happened, but it has also not changed the feel of the fabric, which is really nice for your sweatshirt, because once you launder it, it's going to really feel natural. Like this sweatshirt here feels super comfortable, there's nothing stiff, it's not bulletproof, it's really nice. So I'm going to put this on the machine and then stitch out the next step. All right, so we have our, I already stitched out the placement stitch, so you can see here the letter S. I'm going to take my piece of fabric and just cover that up. You could tape this in place. You know me, I'm a little bit dangerous, so I'm just gonna push go. Now it's doing that second line of tack down, which is something our digitizers invented, that safety stitch. So now when we trim, we don't have to worry about cutting too closely. All right. So depending on your machine, you may have had to kind of pull the back of that sweatshirt up and away. The machine I'm working on has a free arm, so I slid the back of the sweatshirt around the back of that. But some machines you'll need to sort of, let's see if I can use this as an example, kind of pull the back you're going to embroider with the bulk of the sweatshirt on top so you don't embroider it shut. There. This is one benefit of this machine. All right. Now we're going to take my favorite Kai scissors, and we are going to trim away this excess of the applique fabric. You want to be careful when you're trimming on your finished project like this to not cut through your bottom fabric. So these nice little sharp scissors are really handy. Just be aware of it, take your time, there's no rush. So here is our S. So that's trimmed out, and now we'll go back and do the satin stitch. All right, so the next step is going to be to apply the next layer of applique fabric. Don't forget to remove your paper backing from your applique piece, which I have done and left that on and felt silly afterwards. So you're just going to take that and you're just going to cover the layer that has already been stitched. So there's no real science to this. As long as it's bigger than the last step, you're good. And then you press go. All right, now we are all set with our embroidery. And again, we're going to trim away. So again, this is a raw edge finish. So you can see we have our little bean stitch here. And I'm just going to trim kind of close to the edge of this stitch. There's no perfect amount you leave behind. This one, I don't know if you can see real close here, is really tightly cut. Because we have the soft web on the back of this fabric, once this is all done, I'm going to give it a nice press before I launder it. The soft web is actually going to fuse this fabric to the layer beneath it, which will also help anchor it in place. All right, so again, we're just going to trim, get up as close as we can. All right, so now we've got this all stitched out. I wanted to show you the process of taking it out of the hoop so you can see what we were talking about when we were talking about stabilizer for inside the hoop. So we're starting to tear it away here, but you can see that what was inside the hoop, or in the hoop, is our Ultra Clean and Tear Plus. So I had actually just stuck the sweatshirt down to it. Now we can tear it away. And a lot of people say, but you always say to not use a tearaway when you are making garments, which I stand by. So I will show you the solution for that, because it's nice to be able to not have to hoop your project. So the tearaway is what's keeping it in the hoop. And on the inside of the garment, we have our stabilizer, which is our fusible poly mesh. So here is the inside of our garment. And I'm not sure you can tell, but I have pre-fused, before I embroidered, a piece of fusible poly mesh. Poly mesh is a nice, soft, drapable cutaway to my project. So the purpose of the cutaway for garments or for anything with stretch is that it's going to remain behind your embroidery so that when you put this sweatshirt on, let's say it got stretched out, your letters aren't going to get all wonky. They're going to stay nice line where you left them. So the way you're going to get this off is you're going to take your iron, because we fused that to our project. The nice thing is when you reheat it, that glue sort of releases. So we're going to reheat our fusible. Polymesh and Polymesh Fusible are both a great option for garments, but just keep in mind you want to use a sort of a medium heat iron on this product because it is actually made of nylon, and if you use an iron that is too hot, it can sort of almost melt a little bit. So once that adhesive is heated up again, you can now pull that away, and if it doesn't come, you just want to get it hot. Steam, no steam, doesn't really matter in this case. But then it's going to peel nicely away. And then you're going to trim away the excess of this stabilizer, kind of right around the outside. So I'll show you what that will look like, even though you'll have to imagine that there's not stabilizer still on the inside. And of course, I've got my steam. I'm a sucker for steam, and it makes a big mess. But now we have our wonderful kindness sweatshirt, which I think is fantastic. So another thing that I didn't mention is it's pretty important that you put this lettering in the right place, right? You don't want to have your letters down around your belly, and you don't want to have them up around your neck. So something that I love to do is print a to scale template of my embroidery. I use this for placement all the time on our template sheets. So we have this wonderful product called template sheets. These can run through your printer. Because this was a little bit larger, I actually had to sort of print in 2 pages and make it myself. I stuck it together. You can create words like this in a couple of different ways. You can create it in your machine. You can just bring each file in on your machine and space it out with your placement tools. What I actually used is I used a software. There's a great free software called Embroidery Toolshed, and that's by Dime. The wonderful thing about this software is A, it's free, and you can do a ton of things for free software. One of them is resizing, so I actually brought each of these letters in onto one file, spaced it out how I thought that I'd like it to look, and then I realized it was going to be a little too big for my hoop and my sweatshirt, so I just brought it down a bit in the software. Then you can print templates, so you can tell the software to print. You're going to load your template sheet into your printer, and it will print off a 2-scale template. Again, this is 2 sheets of paper here. You can see where I stuck it together. And it has also included on it this great sort of crosshairs. So I took it, I put my sweatshirt on, and I went to the bathroom where I could see in a mirror, and I actually stuck the sticker to myself to see where I'd like it, right? Because where you think it might be when it's laying flat on your surface is different than where it might be on your person. So I stuck it onto my project, and then I hooped it based on that, right? So I had first fused my poly mesh to the back, then went and put it on, which is a little weird because there's a bunch of stabilizer, but you want to fuse that first before you put your template down. Then you are going to place your template where you like it, leave that on there, take off your sweatshirt, bring it back to your table, stick it to your stabilizer. Use your placement tools in your machine to line up the template with the design on the machine, which is, we get a lot of people say, I don't need templates, I have really fancy placement tools like cameras or lasers on my machine, which is amazing. So you're going to use those cameras and lasers to make sure the design in the machine is exactly placed where you're going to want to, where you've placed this template. So you're going to line those 2 up. Then before you stitch, make sure you take this away. This is not a stitchable product. You can use it again if you want. You can put the paper backing on it and store it. And now you know that your design is going to be placed exactly where you want it. So template sheets are a great tool. We use them for quilting in the hoop. I use them a ton for garments. It's just a really handy visual way to make sure you're straight and level and all of those things. So now you've seen how that works directly on a garment. It's super easy. I'm kind of addicted. You could see now I'm making a million different things. I have my dog mom sweatshirt and my kindness, and it kind of gets taken away from you. But I am going to put this away, and then I'm going to talk about how you can also fuse your letters to a finished project that maybe you can't stitch or don't want to. All right, so I brought some of my fun samples here. I'll show you these. All right, so I was really inspired, and you guys have probably seen the same thing out in the world. I was at, I think it was TJ Maxx, and I was shopping I was trying to find blanks to actually do this project. I found this blank there and this one, and I'll show you the pictures on the screen here. These were actually completed projects that were being sold. So this letter look is very hot. You can see it was definitely what inspired my stuff bag. So this is, I did the letters on Badge Master, like we talked about, and then I used the product that I'm going to talk about next, Fuse and Seal, to fuse it to the top of this little zipper pouch. It's like little cosmetic bags, but you can see you wouldn't be able to stitch. Suppose you could stitch through this, but it would be difficult, and then you'd mess up your little rubber bands. So this is a much better way to do it. We have 2 non-stitchable products in our line. We actually just talked about the first one, which is template sheets. When I say non-stitchable, it means that they're used for things, but they're not intended to be stitched through. So template sheets, for example, they almost look like stabilizer, but if you stitch through them, you're going to get a gummy needle. They're not meant to be stitched through. Fuse and Seal is another product like that. So after you've embroidered your letter, so we have our A here, and we've taken it out of the hoop, you're going to take some Fusion Seal. So this comes in a couple of different ways, but I like this little roll. And the great thing about Fusion Seal is it's a permanent fuse. It will withstand washing. So if we fuse on, for example, something like our little letter A here, this is fused onto a onesie, and this is washed, it's going to stay put. The nice thing about doing this, just as a side note, is while I could have embroidered directly on this garment, A, it's tricky to embroider on onesies because they're tiny, but B, if you fuse it on, then you're not going to have anything that is going to irritate the gentle baby skin. So we actually embroidered this and then fused it onto this little onesie. So it's a great product for essentially making it so that you can add embroidery to anything that can withstand heat. So any finished product that can handle the heat of an iron, you can put embroidery on. So let me get my iron. And a great thing to use with this is a Teflon sheet because they're totally non-stick. So that way, if there's any excess stabilizer that sort of oozes out, it's not going to get on your pressing mat or your ironing board. So you are going to take your letter and you're going to take a piece. This is a little piece of Fusion Seal that I cut from the roll. And you're going to just trace. It's a little slippery, so you got to be careful. I'm going to trace that out. It's a little light on screen, but I think you get the idea. All right, so then you're just going to trim this out. All right, so the thing that's important is you want to make sure that you're fusing to the glue side. So it may be tough to see on camera, but there's a paper side and then there's a glue side. So we're just going to take our letter, and it's okay if it's a little bit bigger than your piece because we have this Teflon sheet. You'll see it'll all turn out okay in the end. So you want to make sure that's kind of stuck there. Cover that up with your Teflon sheet. Don't get your fingers in there, and then give it a press. And then you can take the iron off and see if it's sort of stuck. If it's not stuck, give it some more heat. So looks like I did okay. The important thing now is to let that cool because it's still hot, and if you try and peel it away, the adhesive can kind of get stuck to the paper. So let's cool that down. That's hot. All right, so that's cool-ish. It's a little warm. We're going to peel that away. I think I should have let it cool a little bit more. But you can see, I think, my Fusion Seal, I said it was a little bit too big. I can just take my scissors now and just trim that little piece off. All right. So now we have basically a patch. So you could take this and do any number of things with it and it doesn't have to happen right now. This is fairly stable. So if you wanted to make a bunch of letters and have a little party with, I saw someone did a party with their daughter, I think they were 6 or 10 years old. They made a bunch of different patches and then bought a bunch of blanks. And then the girls came over and they just had a little, you need some adult supervision for the iron maybe, but they made their own little bags for party favors, which was really cute. But so you can make these ahead of time and then put them on later if you'd like. But we are going to actually apply to a Christmas stocking. That's just a basic Christmas stocking blank. So you would just place your letter exactly where you want it. Cover with your pressing sheet and press. Again, just long enough to get that glue really hot and melty so that it sticks. And then once it's fused, it's a permanent fuse that you can wash if you want to. It's not going anywhere. This stuff is really on. It's a really useful tool to have in your stabilizer drawer, Fusion Seal. Take that off. And now we have our Christmas stocking for a sparkly letter A. I love that. So very simple to do. Again, the technique for the layering and the stitching is exactly the same. Let me get this out of the way, and then we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of these samples. I thought this hat was really fun. So again, this is just a straw hat I found, and I stitched out my letters on Badge Master. And the thing that I wanted to mention, and I know I've said this a couple of times, is you can do this technique with any embroidery that's an applique that has a satin stitch around the outside. Really, it doesn't even have to be applique, but if it's full, like complete, there's no empty spaces, and it has a satin stitch as the last step. If you do this on Badge Master, you can then perforate it away, put Fusible on the back, and treat it exactly the same as these letters. So we have our beach hat. I'll put the collection number for this seashell up on the screen so you can, if you want to make your very own beach hat. And this I did with cotton, so nice and lightweight. And now you could be glamorous at the beach. Some of my other favorite samples are this hat. I found this blank and then did the letter L on Badge Master again. This is just cotton, so it's really nice and pliable. I think it's really cute. And I think this might be my favorite sample. We always have trouble making things for men. It's a tricky thing. All of the men in our lives are under gifted to. So I found this blank zipper bag, again at TJ Maxx, and I had some embroidery leather laying around in my scrap bin. So I actually did this using leather, and I think it's just a really neat masculine look that then I just fused to this bag. All right, so if you were inspired by all of the fun things we've made, we put together a wonderful bundle for you if you want to just get started. Of course, you don't need to do it this way. You can purchase things individually or use what you have in your stash, but I think this is a really great opportunity to get everything you need to get making your own personalized letter project. So let's talk about the bundle we put together. So we have all the things we need. So we have our soft web sheets. So remember, that's what we backed our cotton with for letters done directly on projects. Keeps it from fraying as much, fuses it down, wonderful. Then we have our Fuse and Seal. That's the product we use to glue the badges to our projects, right? That's what stuck our letters to our finished goods. We have fusible polymesh. This is what we put on the inside of the sweatshirt that then is going to give you that stabilizing after washing and wearing. And just so that I mentioned, this is a 15-inch by 10-yard roll in this bundle. You have a 12-inch by 2-yard roll of the Fuse and Seal, 8.5 by 11 sheets of soft web. Then we have a nice roll of Ultra Clean Tear Plus, 15 inches by 10 yards. This is the sticky tearaway that breaks down with laundering. So anytime you're embroidering anything that is going to be washed, this is what you want to reach for. This is why we gave you a full-size roll in this bundle, because you're going to use this over and over again. It is great for anything that is, again, going to be washed, laundered. It's a go-to for sure. And then, of course, we have our Badge Master, which is what you're going to put in the hoop when you are making the patch version of these letters. So 2 layers of Badge Master. This is a 12-inch by 8-yard roll. So you're going to get all of this stabilizer, plus you're going to get the collection that we've been talking about all day today. So that's Collegiate Applique letters. And then we thought it would be fun to pull some collections that we have released in the past. These are a little bit older, but they're applique letters that can be created, projects can be created from them exactly the same way that we created our other projects. So let me show you some samples I made. The first alphabet is floral alphabet appliques, which is really, really fun. So see how this Q has these little florals around it? You get the whole alphabet with the letters that have florals, and you just get these basic ones. So I thought this was a really kind of nice all-around alphabet, very simple. So floral alphabet appliques, which is a heck of a mouthful, but I love this. I just made this little quilter sweatshirt. I'm gonna wear this at trade shows coming up. So that is one of the collections you're going to get for free in this bundle, along with Collegiate Applique Alphabet. And then we have our Medley Applique Alphabet. So that is, I used that to make this little love canvas. I just took a piece of canvas, stitched this on felt, and then stapled it to the back. This is a great alphabet. It actually has these fun decorative stitches on it. You can do it in a couple of ways. If you pre-cut your applique pieces, it's kind of tough to see, but this is actually 3 different fabrics here. So you can do it sort of crazy quilt style, or if you do one just one fabric. It's just a neat texture with those decorative stitches. So I made this little love wall hanging, which I think is really cute. So that is our medley applique alphabet. You'll get that for free. And last but not least, cutie applique alphabet. This is adorable because look how little it is. It's really nice and small. So I stitched out these letters, applique, and then I'm going to take those out and I'm actually going to fuse them to this onesie for a dear friend who just had a baby. So you can kind of picture that. How cute will that be? So this is cutie, it is actually cute, cutie alphabet applique. Applique and alphabet are very hard to say together. So you're going to get all of that stabilizer we talked about plus 4 collections, Collegiate Applique Alphabet, Cutie Applique Alphabet, Medley Applique Alphabet, and just to make you crazy, Floral Alphabet Appliques. So you get all sorts of stuff. You can become a personalization machine. I think there are infinite possibilities. So all of this stuff together is a value of $305 if you're just going to buy it outright. If you buy the bundle, it is $149.95, which is a crazy deal. The collections will deliver to you digitally in your My Design section of your account on the website. So if you're on OESD.com and you look up in the top right corner, you will see a little person silhouette. If you click that, and then you can go to My Designs and you can download these after your purchase. So super easy. I think this is a great way to get started. I know I'm inspired. It's nice to kind of get my embroidery mojo back, and sometimes you really just need a inspirational project. So hopefully you enjoyed making these along with me. I really would love it if you shared what you've made in our Facebook group, The Perfect Stitch. We love to see the finished products. So thank you very much. I will see you next time. Happy stitching.